everyone. Welcome to another episode of Guiding Light. I'm Jenna Carson,
I'm Sierra Larson.
and we are thrilled to be joined by our special guest, Shawn Roundtree. Welcome, Shawn. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. I'm excited.
Shawn Roundtree Jr. is an Edwardsville, Illinois native. Throughout his youth, he became a well-known athlete in the St. Louis metropolitan area, landing him a Division I basketball scholarship to Missouri State University. After transferring and graduating from Central Michigan University, he decided to play professionally in Georgia, the country. It was overseas where he had made the decision to switch gears and pursue a hidden passion of his, acting. Since post-pandemic, Roundtree has been grinding with his acting career. He has made appearances in shows such as Chicago PD and Emperor of Ocean Park, sharing scenes with Academy Award winner Forrest Whitaker. Over his short acting career, he has filmed many short films and can be seen in numerous commercials, such as Drive Time, Foot Locker, and more. In 2022, Roundtree won first place in Christine Horn's Hollywood-bound Actors Monologue competition. In 2023, he was selected into the acting track of the prestigious Hillman Grad Mentorship Lab, founded by Emmy Award winner Lena Waithe. Roundtree continues to work on his craft under many coaches and programs. He is also an entrepreneur, coach, trainer, and motivational speaker. In 2022, he founded Great Wave, a brand that encourages the youth to be their best selves. Through all the various hats he wears, he believes his purpose is to help impact others on the planet. Shawn, thank you so much for being here. So, Shawn, a transition from professional basketball to acting is a large transition. Tell us about that. What prompted that?
Well, I would say my senior year in college at Central Michigan University, the basketball program kind of let me do a lot of creative things, and I had my own like talk show. It was called Roundtree's Roundtable, and that put me in front of the camera a lot. And I'm a pretty well-spoken guy, so I know how to speak in front of cameras and things like that. I'm comfortable in front of the camera. And so that brought up a lot of feelings that I had when I was younger. Like when I was younger, I was into performing arts heavily. And so for like the last 8 years, I just dove right into basketball, kind of shunning the acting part. But like when I went overseas, what happened was I felt like basketball had kind of ran its course and just trying to figure out what to do next. But I had this urge to like get back into acting. And so, I just made the decision. I was like, whenever I get back home in the States, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to pursue it. Like, I'm just going to give my time and energy to this. And so that's what prompted it. I didn't know where to start. Um, I started out by like making skits, like comedy skits. And I really had to like transform because rebrand essentially because everyone kind of knew me as Shawn the basketball player, rather than Shawn as an actor, So it took some time. Um, and there were a lot of feelings, initial feelings that I had to get over of just like putting yourself out there. Um, and over time, like things began to happen. I started to get enough footage to put together to submit to an agency. And then at the top of 2021, we were off and running.
Amazing. Now, was there some grief leaving basketball? I'm just imagining that that could have been emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. For the act of just like playing basketball, I was ready. Like I knew I was good. I was okay with that and I was leaving on my own terms. A lot of times athletes, depart from their sport. It's something heartbreaking, unfortunately. Um, but I was ready. Now, when I came back home, that was the first time I really had to deal with like the real world, because I had been through college. In college, I won't say we're like very sheltered, but you're focused on our coaches keep you focused on the sport. You go to class, there's a lot of things provided for you. You know what I mean? So I didn't have to think about a lot of real world things that a normal student would have to, right? From the ages of 18 all the way up to maybe 23. So here I am, this 24-year-old in the world, don't know about anything. Um, and there was a while where I was really upset with basketball. I didn't even want to look at a basketball. Just for the fact that I felt so behind, in life. Um, and so that was a rough time. That was a rough period where I'm just, welcome to the real world. And in the midst of it, we're in a global shutdown. This is around the pandemic. You know what I mean? So like nobody in the world knew what they were doing, right? Or what was going on. And so there was just a lot of confusion and just trying to adjust to a whole new world.
Yeah.
What gave you the ability to do that, to be so resilient?
Um that's how I am, right? Like I don't know how else to explain it. It's the same level of focus and intensity that I apply to sports, essentially. Um, I can be real spearheaded, right? Like tunnel vision if I have a goal. Um, and that's what I'm set on. Um, I've developed a lot of great habits as far as discipline. And so I know what it looks like or what it means to really lock in, to limit distractions and really go after what you set on. So that's how I applied it. I didn't know any other way. You know what I mean? I didn't know any other way. If I wanted to do acting and I said I was going to do this, I had to do the things that I feel will get me to that destination, you know? So but it was tough. It's a whole different world. So I'm learning on the fly.
I love that. I think it was like I was listening to Alex Hormozy like not too long ago, and he said commitment isn't just what you say yes to. Commitment is all the things that you say no to for the thing that you said yes to. So
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do acting, which means no, I'm not gonna hang out with friends as much. I'm not gonna like have a that lifestyle, or I'm not going to, do basketball or whatever those things are. It's saying no to a lot of things and saying yes to the thing that you really decided on.
yeah. That's so good. That is so good, Sierra, because um yeah, I am that person that's like I will say no to going out all the time, or kind of like, and I don't like to say sacrificing too much. I like to use it as investing. Like this is what I'm investing in. I'm investing in myself, in my time, and to what I would like to do. Um, Luckily, that wasn't the hard part for me because I've been on that type of time. You know what I mean for
Mm-hmm.
basketball. And so a lot of my friends socially, they know that about me. You know what I mean? And so that it can get tough sometimes when you are in a rough spot or you feel like things aren't taking off and you just feel like, well, what am I doing all this for? Um, but yeah, I love that quote. That's really good.
I do want to ask, in your bio, you mentioned that um, acting was a secret talent. And I want to know, we grew up together, just for audience sake, like Shawn and I grew up together. I remember seeing his plays. I knew from the beginning, I'm like, he can act.
Yeah.
I remember going to all his plays and stuff. So I'm actually really curious about why it was hidden, why it was put on the back burner, and what kept you from that if you had that call the whole time.
Yeah. Man, that's such a great question. And I just want to put this out there, Jenna. There was a time where like Sierra and I were obsessed with this movie called Introducing Dorothy Dandridge with Halle Berry. And we would sing all the songs and we watched the movie over and over. Okay. So yeah, Sierra knows. All right. Um,
And
there
he
was
can sing. I don't know if people know that he can sing too.
yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
I haven't put that cat out the bag yet. You know what? Growing up, I was very outgoing and my family, our family really they were that type of family where whenever we got together, like, Shawn, go do that thing, go sing that thing, go do that, right? And so I grew up really just knowing I have some talents and not afraid to put them on display. What happened was around seventh grade and eighth grade was the time where, like, I really got caught in the first time of, like, what am I going to give my time to? Basketball or acting? And so it just so happened that I was a very dedicated athlete and I wanted basketball as well. And I had not known anyone to be able to do both, right? There was no thought about that. Um, and so what's crazy is around this time, High School Musical came out. And so if you remember, like, the trouble that Troy Bolton had of, like, acting in basketball, that was my real life. You know? And so, over time, it just at first I was just like, okay, well, basketball, this is what I'm doing, right? And then, when you don't practice your passions or your crafts long enough, they become forgotten, right? And so that's what really happened. And I was in this whirlwind of sports, like deep in sports, getting scholarships. And that was my focus. And I was okay with that. Um, and so it's funny that you mentioned that, Sierra, because a lot of my childhood friends that I grew up from, kindergarten all the way up to seventh grade, they know that Shawn, the performer, right? And so what was so gratifying is when I did make the decision to act and everybody kind of knew, like, okay, this is what he's doing. Those same friends were the ones who were like, man, I knew it. I was just waiting. We were all just waiting. You know what I mean? That felt so good to hear from, my peers who I had grown up with. And it was more so secret to, you know, people who've never seen that side of me, people who I've competed against for all these years. Those are the ones who were like, "What is this? Where did this come from?" You know what I'm saying? Um, but I will say, when I did make that decision to go back into acting, I found my inner child again, right? Like I had to, and the transition wasn't easy personally, um, because I had to work on myself. I had to find who I was and my identity outside of basketball. So, um, that in itself was a blessing.
So, Shawn, what advice would you give listeners who have several passions and several talents? Maybe if listeners are asking, which should I pursue right now? What should I give my time to?
That's a great question. I would say, if you love what you do, all these different talents, do not completely shelf one, right? Like, try to really find time to do both. And there's gonna be times or seasons, right? Like, you have to look at these things like seasons. There's gonna be times where one thing is slow and you can pick up that other gift and that other passion, up again or spend more time at that. But I would say don't completely neglect that, because looking back, like, I had an amazing basketball career. Like, I really did, right? However, man, sometimes it makes me sad that knowing that maybe for 9 or 10 years, this thing that I really love to do and did as a kid and wanted to do since I was a kid, that kind of got put in the shadows for a long time. And I can only imagine, had I really, really tried to find ways to put energy into both, you know, and I don't like to think about, oh, where my career would be now, but just finding self, if I could have done that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I love that. I think that sometimes we get caught up in the who am I? And I have to be one thing. And I know this sounds contradictory because I just talked about commitment, but commitment is like what you're focused on, but it doesn't mean that's who you are. We get caught up in saying like, oh, I'm a basketball player, and then you can't feel like you can't do anything else. But no, you're a basketball player. You still play basketball, you still coach, right? And you're an actor. And and that's okay. You can be both things, but I like how you're saying is like the commitment is what and your attention is what you can shift and change in times and seasons, and your identity isn't dependent on those things. Your identity can be whoever you choose to be. So I love that.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of athletes struggle with, you know? They spend so much time thinking that this sport is who they are. You know, if you have a bad game or going through a bad shooting drought, whatever, you feel like your whole world is going down. Like this is a real thing. Um, and then and this is what I talk about a lot with a lot of athletes whenever they're finished with their sport. Athletes don't know how to express themselves because they've never had to work on that side of themselves, right? So when it comes to dealing with emotions, sitting in emotions and trying to figure out what that is that they feel, they can't do it because, think about this, like your world is always going. We wake up, we might have to lift, then we have a practice, then we have to get ready for a game, then we have class, and then there's no time to feel or process things that are happening to you. You know what I mean? So when that is gone, that is a really tough time. And like, and I don't want to be stereotypical, but like you see a lot of athletes when they're finished, they might get into like rapping or something. Not necessarily as like, oh, I love rapping and they've never done it. Some of them have never done it, but they are just reaching for ways to express themselves, get their thoughts out, get their feelings out because we don't know how to process that. So it's really interesting, and it's a huge topic that I feel isn't discussed as much.
So, did you find a way to process things and create space for yourself during your basketball career?
You know what? I explain to people that although I feel like I've always been a really good person, a self-aware person, um, I myself was a machine. Like I was a good machine, right? I got good grades. I had the student athlete life down to a T, I knew how to study well. I knew how to get good grades. I knew how to balance practices and games and all of that stuff. When it came to myself though, there were a lot of there were a lot of blind spots that I had to really work on and that I didn't even notice until I was done playing basketball. And I'll give you an example of just like emotional intelligence, my relationships with other people, right? Because I was just I had such tunnel vision that I kind of dealt with people on a surface level, or I wouldn't let people get close to me, you know? When you talk about like relationships, I struggle in that area because it's just like I'm locked in. I don't like feeling too vulnerable because I've never had to do that. And I gotta stay strong. I gotta be in this competitive realm of myself. And so it really took a while to recognize those things. And that was the beauty of that decision of going into acting, because in acting you have to embody a whole other character. They might have tendencies, they might have characteristics, feelings and emotions that are completely different from you yourself, but you have to be able to embody that. Now, how can you embody that if you never experience or try to discover those feelings in yourself? You see that can't it won't work, or it's going to come off as super fake and the audience is going to know. So with acting, I really had to work on my vulnerability and being able to open up and be an open vessel Um, and so that, man, when I tell you that was one of the hardest, like, look in the mirror moments that I had, and I did the work. I'm still doing the work.
Yeah, I love that. It's reminding me I'm not an actor. I wish I was. That's like my
Yeah,
one on my one day list.
got that. See, Bella's here for you. She knows.
But I remember we were doing like a CPE training and we had to read these like little skits. And one came up that was like really personal for me. And I was like super triggered by it. I was like, oh my gosh. But I had already volunteered to do it. Everyone's looking at me. I gotta do this skit. And I was just like, we're leaning into this. Like we're just going all in. And it was so cathartic. Like it was something that I really hadn't processed before. It was something that well, I wouldn't say that, but like something that I just don't really talk about. And I felt like um was really difficult in any other way to express, but I got to like be a character and express it. And for me, that was like I'm like crying. I'm like doing this whole thing. And my other chaplains are like, Sierra, chill. It's just this like we're just in a training. But it was really because like I identified with this character so much. And so I'm wondering, you say it's really hard because you have to like I do that, but sometimes is it cathartic in a way for you to be able to express those emotions through a character?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that is it's kind of a relief when you're in that process, just like you had experienced, yeah, where something came up and you're like, whoa, 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 and you're able to you kind of come out of it feeling like, okay, I'm aware of this, and this character might have helped me process this a little bit, or at least point me in a direction to go forward. Um, and there's a lot of actors like that is a driving force for them into this field is like they get to work on so many different parts of themselves, right? And in front of an audience, but you also hide behind the shield of that's not me. But you got them problems too. So it can be relieving and but also with that, you have to be careful too because it will bring up some stuff. It will bring up some dirt. And so it's about how you handle that too. And there's like an aftercare that you have to have for yourself when those things are triggered.
And what would you say are some of those things as far as aftercare when you can be triggered by either a character or just a life event?
Yeah, there was this acting class that I was taking, and it was really working on our emotions. So like, the crying and being so vulnerable, which were things that I ran from, um, that I was scared. Also because you want people to think you're talented, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're an actor? Can you cry on cue?" And it's like that's not what it's deeper than that. And so the heart the how can the mind knows that you're acting. Your body, everything is real, you know? So if that character is might be having a panic attack or a breakdown, when you say cut, your body is still going through that. And so there are ways, right? Like you have to take time and breathe. You might have to go do something the rest of the day to kind of shake that off. And, throughout my 4 or 5 years of doing this, you kinda get a chance to know, like, what type of actor you are. And so, I am that actor that, like, before we start, I'm deep into that character. I'm getting myself prepared for it. So it kinda takes a good amount to get me to that point. And so when we say cut, I'm still in there. My body is still tense. I might still be feeling that emotion. And it's about like trying to come back down. I might go listen to music that brings me back to myself that I enjoy, maybe not necessarily that character would enjoy. You know what I mean? To kind of bring me back to myself, you know? Um, it's tricky, man. That nervous system can get shot in this.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm reminded of the book. We talk about this book regularly on this podcast, or we refer to it, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And he talks about how healthy theater can be for trauma survivors. It's so good because it gives you a safe container to feel things that wouldn't otherwise be safe to feel. And I just hadn't thought about this other piece, and he might speak to this in the book, but I don't remember. I hadn't thought about coming out of that state. So I
Mhm.
appreciate you bringing this up and talking about the importance of tending to the nervous system.
Yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
so crucial. It's so crucial.
Absolutely. And I haven't had to play an extreme character just yet, like for a long period of time. When you think about like the Joker, Heath Ledger's the Joker,
Yep. Yep.
or they have what's called method actors, where they
Like
go,
Christian Bale, right?
yes, like Christian Bale, or the biggest one is like Daniel Day-Lewis, where they stay in character for months at a time. They show up as this character, and even in between, the takes and on set, they're this character. You think about when that's over. You live as this character for so long. I haven't had to do that to that extreme yet, but I can only imagine. And I like to listen to actors through interviews about that process, you know. Because ultimately you want to give your best work. So you're gonna give all of who you are to show up and do the best job possible. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
And I like what you talked about earlier. You said you don't love to use the word sacrifice, you like investment. And at that point, you were talking about, your focus and staying committed. I also think it applies to this of of knowing what the trade-offs are. So if you are a method actor, for example, there are some ways that will really affect other parts of your life. And so one of the things I'm hearing from you is to do things with intentionality, to know what you're sacrificing or investing, and to just be intentional about those choices.
Yeah, that's amazing, Jenna. Intentional, right? Like, beyond even acting, it's I feel like being intentional will provide you with great direction, like even in just simple things as decision making. What is the intention, right? Um, I I think that like some people, even when they come in contact with others, especially in so many different industries, but in my industry specifically, you know, some people will try to fake it till you make it, or they try to meet someone who you might see as higher on a pedestal, and it's like, oh well, I'm gonna do this so I can get this, instead of being intentional and really being like a good human being, right? Like not necessarily trying to come in contact with someone because you want something back. Like it doesn't have to be transactional. Um, but being intentional can, I feel like I said earlier, just direct you to so much in a greater path in a sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, especially in light of your bio at the end, where we hear that your purpose in life is to impact others. So, Shawn, tell us a little more about that purpose of yours. I think it's really great and it transcends any one moment. It's a life purpose.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I when I was younger, I always felt that I was just kind of different. Like I thought about greater things I thought about the world more. I thought about people more. Like, r- really had a big heart as a young kid. And, you know, when you're a kid or growing up around, a lot of kids, you start to see what's important to them. And certain things aren't important until later down in life, right? But there were a lot of things that I cared about that were heavy on my heart at a young age. And so, I was often put in a lot of positions of leadership, right? Just that's just who I am. Like I not that I like to take charge, but there are people who will follow me, or when I speak, people will listen. And for a while, it was like I fought that. I fought that. It was like, why do people want to know what I think? Why aren't people doing things until I say it? You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't want to be that, because sometimes that could get heavy. People will bring you heavy things. And it's like, what am I supposed to do with that? But on the other side of that is like, when you're done questioning that and you start to look at it, it's like people feel comfortable coming to me with certain things, right? I might attract a lot of people in different stages of their life. And it's like, okay, well, how do they see me? Or, God, why are you putting me in this position to help this person? Right? I didn't ask for this. And so there were a lot of positions that I found myself in just like that with so many people. Um, but then they come back and they're like, you have no clue how much you helped me. You have no clue how much this moment helped me at this time in my life. Um, and so, around maybe 23, I was just like, I had to embrace that part, right? I had to, because there were times where I'd put myself in like isolation and away from so many people, socially. And all I was doing was really digging my own self into a hole, because I was fighting against what I felt that God had put me on this earth for. You know, um, there are certain things that I might not be successful in, but people might see me attempting that, and it'll be the spark for them. You know what I mean? Like, I have the wherewithal and awareness to know that about who I am, who God has made me to be. And so that's what kind of birthed Great Wave. When I finished playing, I was just trying to figure out, okay, what are ways that I can impact people, right? And I come from a household where I've seen my parents throughout social work. They've they've helped so many families, right? Underprivileged families. And so many, just they've helped so many people in our community. So I've seen the authenticity of helping people and what that does for them. Um, and so through Great Wave, I was like, I always say be great, right? And then I thought of wave, because waves bring things in, but they also take things out, right? Like, if you think about a shore, they bring things to the surface and then they wash it back and bring it back, right? And I feel like that's that's an analogy and symbolic to life. And we're all on this wave. We're all on our own wave, right? And we have to pay attention to our wave, because if we get caught up on someone else who's on their board on that wave, then we'll mess up and get distracted on our journey. So that's where I combined it, Great Wave. And I really wanted to use it as a platform to help people and talk to people about doing the work on themselves, right? Um, because all of us have so many different holes of trauma and different experiences, and we try to search for ways to fill those holes with maybe, bad things, drugs, sex, whatever, all of those things. We all have our devices, but if we're not aware of that and we're not plugging those holes in ourselves, we put ourselves in position to hurt ourselves or other people. So, I try my best to talk to the youth through Great Wave early. Try to get that early. Try to get in tune with their emotions early, right? Like, I think about, had I learned really how to deal with myself as a young athlete early, there were a lot of things that I wouldn't have gone through, you know, because that journey, my basketball journey wasn't just straight, like narrow all the time. Like it was up and down. And so I didn't deal with it the best all the time. So that's mainly how I came about Great Wave, but more importantly, just knowing myself, trying to figure out who I was and my purpose on this earth. I know that was a long answer, but yeah.
It was great. I didn't mean to make a pun there, but it was so can you briefly tell us what Great Wave is?
Yeah. So yeah, so like I was saying, Great Wave is that platform that I use. I do a lot of trainings under there. Like I'm still a coach and I train basketball every day. I'm in the gym working with kids from third grade to 12th grade, and I call it Great Wave Training. Um, and so that's the umbrella, right? I do the talking, I do the coaching, I do the training. I have apparel sold under Great Wave, and so that's the umbrella. But ultimately, you know, it's for trailblazers. It's for I want people to be fearless in who they are, and I want people to have the heart to help others, right? Because when you're in touch with yourself, you're able to give more. So that's mainly that's the brief description of Great Wave and what it's for.
So it
So
sounds like kind of a training and mentorship opportunity for you to interact, with youth and support them and help them on their journey as well. So you've already had this incredible journey. You've been able to play professionally. You're shifting gears and identifying with self and growing yourself. And now you're turning back and helping other youth do the same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's been cool because I've been able to, you know, speak in so many different places. I've spoke at some companies, you know, and that itself is interesting, right? Because I'm speaking to people who might have been at this corporation, you know, maybe longer than I've been alive. So like, how do I talk to people older than me? And you get that imposter syndrome, right? But also knowing what you can offer and you know what's on your heart and finding ways to relate to whatever audience that you're speaking to. That's the hard part. That's the hard part, but that is also fun too. You know, trying to figure that out and navigate that. And that always brings up something of like some insecurity of mine. That it's like, okay, let's work through that. Let's get through this and let's go do it.
I can imagine that a lot of our listeners are really excited about this work that you're doing. How can we support your work with these youth?
Yeah, yeah. So on all social media, you can follow me at Shawn Roundtree Jr. And then on Instagram, I also have a page for Great Wave at underscore Great Wave. And so that's where you'll be able to see like some clips of me training. You'll be able to see me clips of me speaking at different places. And so it's been kind of under construction for reconstruction for a little bit, but looking forward to getting back active on that on the Great Wave page. There's some great things coming up, and so I'm excited.
Well, it's exciting to hear about. We have loved hearing your passion, and thank you so much for sharing some of your amazing story with us. Are there any last words of wisdom or things on your heart that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I would just like to say, to Sierra, I'm so proud of you, Sierra. You've done so well. And, you know, Sierra is a creative. Like, she is a creative. And I love seeing different things that she has going on. And I've seen her grow into an amazing mother, right? And so it's been a pleasure to see Sierra, you know, navigate through her own creative journey and seeing what she's doing. And so when she called me about coming on here, that was a no-brainer. I'm here, you know. So that's my main shout out to Sierra. Okay, I'm proud of you. I love you. Um, and this conversation has been great. And if you have a talent and a gift and a passion, go for it. Do it. Right? Like do it. Go for it. You know? Give it all that you got.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, we grew up together. I love you. I love your family and our family. We're, been just, diapers together, just like so long. And it's cool to just cheer each other on and be in each other's circles and just be able to be great and help others be great. So yeah. Um, what would you say is like one actionable item that our listeners can take with them today and go and start and do and to be great, to do great?
I would say just live in who you are. Live in who you are, right? That really takes care of so many other things because when you're not living as yourself, now your behaviors are different. You start acting different towards others. So when you're really within yourself, you're comfortable, you feel better within your own self, your own skin, right? Um, and that takes away so many other problems. That's all I would say. Just be you.
Shawn, you mentioned that you've been on a spiritual journey the last 3 months. You told us that. Tell us what that has looked like.
Well, with this lifestyle of acting, it's not the most stable, right? And there's a lot of times where I question, am I doing the right thing? Um, God, is this what is am I on the right path? Right? Um, and so there are a lot of times where I've just tried to do, I don't want to say disobey God, but just like kind of doing what I want to do, what I think I should be doing. And you know, I got with some of my friends and we were just talking about where we're at in this stage of life, and um, we started doing this Bible study every morning where we're reading some devotionals, reading some scriptures, and over the last 4 months, it's really helped me just stay grounded. And I don't think there's ever been a time where to this extent where I am like seeking God so much, right? Like really seeking his word, really seeking peace, right? Not and really letting him steer this whole thing. Steer it and obey, right? Like just obey what you feel you're being called to do or he's calling you to do. Um a big thing is I struggled last year on whether to coach or not because we were in an actor strike. So there was nothing being made. That means no auditions, nothing. Okay? And so I was asked to coach here at Everettsville High school I went to, had success at. But I was like really fighting it because I was just like, I don't want to be stuck here. Right? Like I love basketball, but I don't want to feel stuck. But I finally did it. And it was one of the most rewarding things that I ever could have done. But that was like God really calling me to be here and help these kids and help this program. And it was therapy for me, right? And after that, literally after the season ended, when I tell you there was like an influx of just auditions and so many other things, it was like God had was like, do this and I've got you. You know what I mean? And after that, like I booked this huge show starring with Forrest Whitaker, had some other bookings, but that's just one example of feeling like I obeyed what God was calling me to do. And so that's the spiritual part of everything has just been overflowing in me right now, especially now, right? Where things might be slow, or I'm looking for that one opportunity to get back on set. But God has really been grounding me lately, and it's been an amazing feeling. And when you're in that, it's like you just want more. You want more of God's word. You want to hear God more, and you gotta live right. Like you have to live righteous, right? So that's what I've been on lately, and it's been great.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned like the blessings that come from submission. When we when we just say, you know what is it that you want from me, and not in a bad way, but like what is it that you you want me to do? I'll do it. Just let me know. And submitting to that, he takes you from being what you thought you could be to being 10 times more than you ever knew you could. and then your influence, your impact, your reach is just exalted because you put him first, and he adds upon you in so many ways and uses you to glorify him. And it's just like your story, good for good or bad, your whatever you've gone through, he uses that to his glory. And so I love how you said the submission and also the authenticity, because sometimes you're afraid to show that. You're afraid to show the vulnerability. You're afraid to show your story, but he uses your story to glorify and build him and build his kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. Like something big that I heard recently was like, when you stop thinking about everything you're trying to do for you and your story, like you are a part of God's story. Like this is God's story right here. You are a part of it, right? So like stop thinking that way. And like what you said earlier, when you're asking God, what do you want from me? And not in a bad way. Sometimes it will be in an angry way. Right? Like you have to go to God and speak to him how you feel. Don't try to water down your prayers, right? Because he already knows you're upset. He already knows you're annoyed at something, right? Or you feel like just all the emotions that you're feeling. So don't water that down. Come to him as you are. Like that's something that's been big for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of times as a chaplain, my prayer is, God, lead me to the right people, the right place, the right time, and help me let go of my agenda, of what I think needs to be done today. And I have found that when I pray that in the morning throughout the day, God truly guides me to know the small steps to take to be in the right place at the right time. And I have to remember that I have my selfish agenda often, but God sees the big picture. It's like both of you said, it not only blesses you, but others around you. And so all three parties, God, self, and others, are lifted together and blessed together. And I love that about God. I love it's in the Bible says, God says, my ways are higher than your ways, my thoughts are higher than yours, even as the heaven is higher than the earth. And so I always try to remember, like, Jenna, you don't know so much, and that's okay because God will guide you.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. God, what you said, help me let go of my agenda, my own agenda.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
because I've got my to-do list. Like, okay, I've got to do X, Y, and Z. And this is so important. And I get like so fixed on my track. I'm really good at narrowing the focus and, like you said earlier, Shawn, eliminating distraction. And that's good and important. But then there are times and places where I need to be like, okay, Jenna, come out of your own little
that.
turtle shell, your blind spots, and open your eyes and see that there's more going on today.
That's right. I love that. I love all of that. I really do. Like even this, it's like taking the time to talk about God. Right? Like I love that. I've been fiending for that lately and just really seeking God. So this is amazing. This is amazing.
Shawn, you reminded me of this experience. So recently I was at this amazing book festival where I got to I got to meet famous writers that I really admire. And I found myself starting to feel super anxious because I'm like, oh, I have to be like this writer and that writer. And I need to learn to write the way they write. And I feel like God's spirit was helping me after that experience say, no, Jenna, you be you. Write like you, write in your voice. Don't worry about the outcome. And so when you gave this invitation for all of us to be ourselves, I thought of that, how sometimes we get so distracted thinking we need to try to copy one of our heroes. But the beauty is in finding your individual authenticity. And so, Shawn, you talked about that today, and I want to thank you for illustrating how to live authentically and be yourself. So,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'll say real quick that I love in your example how you said you listen to God, right? Like that's I've been on the biggest spiritual journey of my life the last 3 months, and with acting, it's the lifestyle isn't stable. Like, I'll be honest with you, it's tough, and the industry has gone through a lot over the last 2 years. And so, there'll be moments where I feel stagnant, where I feel stuck, where I'm like, is this the right thing? And with the spiritual journey that I've been on every morning, like taking time out to talk to God, to listen to God. If I wasn't on that right now, I think I'd be really might be in a dark place. You know what I mean? And so I love that you mentioned that, and I just wanted to make sure I put that in there in this, so.
Thank you, Shawn. To all our listeners, we're sending you our encouragement and invitation to connect with God as you keep living your most authentic life. Thanks again, Shawn. Be well, everyone. I'm Jenna Carson.
I'm Sierra Larson.
We hope you follow the peace.